Happy New Year, Ian Puddick.
Happy New
2015. It's going to be a big year.
Doing it all over again.
We're starting where we mean to continue, yeah? I'll have to hold this camera, because it's recording our sound, yeah? We've come down here outside Scotland Yard. We brought the Bible of police corruption with us, The Untouchables.
Fantastic book, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and if you haven't read it, you really ought to try and get yourself a copy of it. It's in republication, isn't it?
It's in republication, but what's really interesting is that Scotland Yard, via the Home Office, actually tried to ban that book because they didn't feel that the contents were in the public interest. We feel they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a guy called Ed Gooney who's part of his stories covered in this book, and he'll be coming down later on to join us at Scotland Yard. He might be here very, very soon in his 911. So, yeah. So, anyway, how's things been in the last year for you, Ian?
It's been a very interesting year. I've been trying to put my business back together and focus on that, so that's taken up a lot of my time. But with your support and lots of others, we've been out doing our bit, trying to make a noise.
Yeah.
I think we need to make this really clear. When we talk about police corruption, what we really mean is the lack of police accountability. That's the real issue. There'll always be corruption. There'll always be people that do bad things. We cannot stop that. But the fact that they're not properly held to account, whereas you and I would be as members of the public, I think that's the real issue that we moan and complain, and more importantly, campaign about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's fair.
And I think certainly in the last year, 2014, I mean, we've been at this pretty much. Your story started in 2008 as well, didn't it?
2009.
2009. So mine started in 2008. So for a long time, 5-6 years now, we've both been at this police accountability. Two normal guys.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few trolls lately, haven't we?
Yeah, loads of
both
trolls.
Both of us, lots of trolls. So obviously we're pushing the right buttons.
Yeah.
And some trolls have been set on us. Apparently you're a multi-millionaire. So am I. Apparently I got £4 million donation.
Lie, that's completely true.
Yeah, I don't know where the money is.
No, nor do I.
Nice suit and stuff, but you know. Anyway, so in the last sort of 6 years, the issue of police accountability has really come to the fore, and it's people like you, people like me, and many other people who are sort of banging on that door, on the door of Scotland Yard, and basically calling them to account. Well,
there was a time when the mainstream press ignored largely police corruption for the simple reason that police officers were taking cash bribes from journalists to get the salacious stories on celebs. So there was this really close relationship. I think, to be fair, since Leveson, that relationship has deteriorated, and now almost on a regular, I say a weekly, bi-monthly basis, there's at least a few stories about police corruption and big police corruption. They are being held to account. We've had the Leveson inquiry. There's going to be the Leveson 2 inquiry. I understand that Brian Leveson, or Lord Leveson, is no longer going to be chairing that. They're going to be looking for somebody else. But that Leveson inquiry is still going on. But more importantly, that is all about police accountability.
And that's a sort of, Leveson's been quite a watershed in terms of the relationship between the police and the media. Daniel Morgan case is at the centre of all of that. And again, I think is Daniel Morgan covered a bit in this story, in this book. And one of the big issues of Leveson, though, is there's lots of journalists have been taken to court for accepting bribes, but very few, if any, police officers for giving the bribes. What have you got to say about that?
Well, you know my thoughts on that. It makes my blood boil. Here we are. We're members of the public, surrounded by members of the public. What separates the police from us and other people around is they swear a unique oath to uphold the law. We don't swear that oath. Members of the public don't swear that oath. But the police here do swear an oath. That's what separates them from the public. That's why a police officer is always believed in court above a member of the public if the stories differ, because of that oath. That oath has to have meaning. To answer that question, why did we have the Leveson inquiry in the first place? The only reason, everyone talks about hacks and journalists did this and journalists did that. Yeah, they did some terrible things. They clearly broke the law. But what's more important is Leveson started because the police were taking cash bribes from the journalists for all these nonsense stories. And now we have journalists' doors being bashed in at 5 o'clock in the morning, their homes being raided. But where are these police officers that were taking the bribes? Now, how far does this go? the police would just say, just like the Murdoch or the News International defence, or it's one rogue reporter, and there's a film about that, which is very, very good. What the police will say, oh, it's just a few bad apples. But speaking to the former Home Secretary, Alan Johnson,
just doing an interview. I'll call you back in a minute,
he was asked about
the
hacking and whether there was hacking, and he spoke to the Assistant Commissioner John Yates, and Assistant Commissioner John Yates said to the Home Secretary there was no hacking, it was a storm in a teacup. Now, if an Assistant Commissioner can say that to the Home Secretary, the average man on the street's got no chance. The average man on the street's got no chance. So that's what we're really talking about. And can I just say one more thing?
Of course you can.
Here at Scotland Yard, there was a detective chief superintendent, Tony Lundy, who was exposed some years ago on World in Action by Andrew Jennings. Incredible story. The FBI tipped off Scotland Yard that £100 million worth of cocaine was coming into the country. This is about 15 years ago. £100 million worth of cocaine coming into the country. Scotland Yard were on the ball and they were going to stop this coming in. The FBI warned them that they had a mole, that the drug dealers had a mole here at Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard investigated it and found out that Detective Chief Superintendent Tony Lundy had been taking cash bribes, over £100,000 in cash bribes. Now, is he languishing in a prison somewhere? No, he lives in Spain now. He retired on ill health on an enhanced police pension. They were going to have a disciplinary investigation into this chap who'd been taking the cash bribes, but he became too ill to be interviewed and had to be... it just makes my blood boil.
That sort of brings us neatly back to this morning, where I met an investigative journalist from World in
Yes,
Action.
yeah.
And
yeah, right here this morning.
You can go to your Twitter feed page and see the World in Action, that you've bought the rights to publish. You can see that World in Action documentary, which is an amazing documentary.
Yeah, there's a whole documentary made by World in Action called Cleaning Up the Yard, hence Cleaning Up Scotland Yard. It's banned by the Home Office. I managed to get the licence to broadcast that. I put it up. It had 250,000 hits in about 3 months. It was then taken down by YouTube because Scotland Yard complained. It's back up there again now. It's had a few hits. But again, it's really about police accountability. And it really, if you want to understand why we have bent cops today at a really senior level, watch this documentary. Because it's not about a few bad apples. It's not about a few senior officers turning a blind eye to the law. It's about the culture in this place. And it's the culture in this place that pervades, that allows these things to go on. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
And sort of Leveson too, you're saying, is going to start looking at that police corruption side of it, and hopefully some police officers are going to start to be held to account.
They are. The whole purpose or the whole premise of the Leveson into inquiry is about police accountability and the police relationship with the press. So that will be really, really
And people have got a lot of criticism of the British MPs in this country, but some of the British MPs have been quite strongly behind all this. People like Tom Watson.
Tom Watson, Simon Danczak. There's some fantastic MPs out there that are campaigning to make this place a much more accountable place. The people, Scotland Yard are public servants, and they're here to serve us. And I think that has been lost in translation somewhere when they're involved in all these shenanigans, are above the law, allowed to do whatever they want. They need to be held to account.
And Tom Watson's link, so we've gone from drugs, £100 million of cocaine being imported into the country, nothing being done about it. We went from drugs to media corruption, links between the police and the media, and we move on to something that's really blown up in 2014, that's child abuse.
Yeah, the child abuse.
And Tom Watson's been quite a link in all of that to try and blow.
To be fair to Tom Watson, I think more than a link. I mean, Tom Watson has been an absolute people's champion.
Yeah,
you know, he's a bit of a hero.
He's not on the New Year's Honours list this year, though, is he?
Funny you should say that.
Despite all his good work, he hasn't been put into the New Year's Honours list.
Despite, I don't know what to say about that, but you know, a true people's champion. He took on the Murdoch empire. To be fair, not single-handedly. There were a few others with him. But you know, as a voice for people campaigning for transparency and for the law to be fair and to be upheld, I think Tom Watson is one of my heroes, really.
And we've done this year in 2014. We've done a number of things throughout the year to try and sort of bring a focus on police corruption and try and sort of bring them inside there in Scotland Yard to the realisation that that pretty much it's not under the carpet anymore.
I'm frozen.
it's well known now that there's a real serious issue with accountability and police corruption.
Yeah.
We did clean up the yard this year.
Yeah, we did in April.
In April, but it was a bit warmer then.
Yeah.
So we plan to we're going to do some more of that this year.
Yeah, well, we're going to try. We're trying. There's a group of us, and we're going to try and meet at least once a quarter. Go to Speaker's Corner, hand out leaflets, share our experiences about police accountability, and then from there take it forward in terms of trying to get it into the mainstream. But the biggest thing is we've got we're keyboard warriors. When the press isn't particularly interested, you have an army of journalists online that are interested. People's blogs.
Journalists? I'm a journalist now.
You are. It's fantastic.
I mean, this year I made 6 documentaries in relation to police corruption, the lack of accountability. You can have a look at them, called JusticeNOW. One of them was about you and your experience. Before
we get to that, though, but what kind of a year has it been for you? Because you've done some amazing things. And
well,
we need to talk about
it's been really interesting, very, very interesting. 2014, obviously, the thing that I've done, which is the system itself. I mean, I came here in 2013 and said if the government and the people who seek to govern us are not going to hold the police to account, then we, the people, have got to start doing it ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
And one of the things that I've started doing myself is private criminal prosecutions, bringing the police into the criminal courts for conduct that is clearly criminal.
And have the mainstream media ignored you in this?
Largely, yeah.
No, that's not strictly true.
Largely, I mean, there's been some coverage.
You've had some I think you've had some very good coverage. The coverage that you've had is superb.
But I think there's some sort of now there's some sort of notice or reluctance to start carrying on the publicity of it, because certainly something happened this year. One of the prosecutions against the police secretary for perverting the course of justice was brought to a close in October this year. Hasn't made the media. Obviously, in the alternative media, it's all well known.
Yeah, of course.
And the case was stopped because I brought the prosecution, started in April 2011, and lots of obstruction was thrown into the wheels of justice.
That is an understatement.
Yeah. So I battled with the CPS, the police, the courts to bring this.
They all closed ranks against Michael. Michael's been very generous. They all closed ranks against Michael. I think if it'd been me, I would have given up a long time ago. Michael fought courageously along, and I think he did really well. I mean,
well, look, I'm not disheartened by it.
No, you shouldn't be.
Because I think what it's showing is that this arm of corruption reaches into our courts. Yeah, we've got to acknowledge that the courts themselves are protecting corrupt police officers for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Is it judges are being blackmailed? Is it that they just can't tolerate the fact that corruption is being exposed to this extent, that people lose confidence in policing and lose confidence in the criminal justice system or the justice system in this country?
Well, if I don't want to draw parallels between your case and the child abuse, but if you look at the child abuse, particularly with the institutional VIP MP child abuse, which is now headlines on a weekly basis, you will find that through Freedom of Information Acts and through the championing work again of Tom Watson, MPs like Simon Danzak, that the cover-up is not necessarily by the MPs themselves, but it's by the state. It's by the civil servants. So, for example, when a Freedom of Information request was made of the Home Office about who gave Cyril Smith his knighthood, it was declined. Cyril Smith got a knighthood. Jimmy Savile got a knighthood. Rolf Harris got a knighthood. When they asked who it was, the Home Office didn't feel it was in the public interest to tell the public. The answer is it was David Steele. Now, the point is, the reason I've mentioned this, drawing parallels to your case, who is doing the cover-up or who is trying to make your job even more difficult than it is to hold the police to account? Is it the police officers? Well, probably.
Partly.
But partly, without a doubt, it has to be. But it's using the powers of the state, the civil servants, pulling in favours, closing off doors, shutting down avenues to make your job much more difficult. Now, we pay their taxes. Now, all we're asking, not unreasonably, is for the laws that apply to Michael and I and to everybody else to be fairly applied to the police. And that's what doesn't happen. That's the real issue.
And that's been one of the main focuses of what I've been trying to do, those ranks upon ranks of civil servants, in particular the system called the Police Complaints Commission. I won't even mention the word independent.
Yeah.
The Police Complaints Commission,
Yeah.
which is basically set up as a barrier and obstruction to bringing police to account. It doesn't matter if there's absolute clear evidence of criminality on the police's part. There's case after case after case when they're covering up.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Morgan, we've just mentioned Daniel Morgan. I won't say too much because obviously Theresa May, the Home Secretary, has now ordered an independent inquiry into the investigation or investigations of Daniel Morgan's murder, which the police were complicit in. But there were 4 IPCC inquiries into his death, into his murder, and to obviously examine whether there was any police complicity in the murder. Every single inquiry closed down ranks and found that there was no complicity in of police corruption involved in the Daniel Morgan case. We now know, and they have admitted, that all the previous investigations were hampered by police misconduct.
They've admitted police corruption.
Of course they have. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible. Now, the stories that we hear on a regular basis about police corruption, you expect them to be happening somewhere else, not here in the UK. This shouldn't be happening here. And the only reason it's happening here is because of the internet. People have got access to information, they can share information quickly, and they can't control that. So, never forget, we're really, really blessed in that respect that we do have fantastic tools at our.
People are saying that this is not a modern, it's police corruption issue right now. It's been going on for decades and decades.
It's not new. This is not new.
And it is only things like the internet, social media, things like Twitter, that are allowing all of the different people to link, to see the patterns of behaviour of organisations like the IPCC, and see how they're operating, how they're using things to cover up. There's a case going on at the moment in High Court with the IPCC, which is actually trying to shut down the criticism of the IPCC against a journalist called Neil Wilby up in the north, who's been very sort of active in bringing together different cases and exposing corruption within the IPCC and how they regularly cover up police corruption. So they've now admitted that the IPCC is funding that civil action of harassment to try and shut down the website and shut down what he's saying.
It's just disgusting. And Neil's a good man. We know Neil well. Neil's a very nice guy. What's Neil's issue? Neil, like us, like most people, would like the police to be more accountable. He's created a wonderful website exposing police corruption.
UPSD.
And it embarrasses them. It embarrasses them. Embarrassment is not harassment, and it never should be, and it never will be. And the police will use any tool or any trick they can to shut down any criticism of the yard. And that's why it really does need a big broom to sweep it all up.
Yeah, so let's go back quickly to 2014 and my case. That case was shut down. It had a date set for trial on the 15th of September. They filibustered for a week. It then got delayed till October. And then at that point, the judge in the trial shut down the case, claiming that it was a breach of the police defendants' human rights, that the case had taken so long to come to court.
Remind the viewers of what the charges were.
The charge was perverting the course of justice.
How serious is that? Conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. It really is up there with the gods in the seriousness of charges. But the human rights of the police officers, or for the alleged misconduct, was put first. That their human rights could have been breached because of the length of the trial, so the case was dropped.
And very importantly as well, how I came to be involved in police corruption is that I reported that my child was being abused via the internet. She was being sexually groomed over the internet. When I reported it,
they didn't want to know.
They didn't want to know, and the police fabricated.
That's the police, by the way.
Fabricated allegations against me that I had harassed a member of the police. You couldn't make this stuff up, and since that 6 years, I mean, my life's been completely taken over by police corruption. It has gone beyond you couldn't write the stuff that's gone on, and most people don't know actually all of what's going on. You can go to my site, JusticeNOW.co.uk, see a bit more information, but it's not all out there yet. It will be at some point. And I think hopefully 2015 is when it all spills out and we start to find out how serious the corruption was. Certainly, I believe, and I certainly believe the evidence in my case, which you know about, my case was used to compromise Operation Alice and Plebgate. And that was the police conspiracy in relation to Andrew Mitchell.
The police will do anything to shut anybody up or shut anything up that it causes them embarrassment and highlights the issues of accountability. I mean, I was at the Plebgate trial, and remember, it was a civil trial, not a criminal trial. So the burden of evidence or the threshold of evidence was much lower. The judge found against Andrew Mitchell. You could argue, do I agree with that? No. You could say, well, that I'm biased, etc. But it was reported by the media, and this is the reason that the judge found against Andrew Mitchell, but in favour with the police. He said, this is what he said. It came down to, did he say it or didn't he say it? The judge did not believe that the police officers had the wit, that was his exact words, the wit, intelligence, to create this lie and then perpetrate the pantomime, these are the words that he used, the pantomime or the story or the charade that followed, i.e. they all closed ranks and kept to the same story. Do I believe that the police could lie under oath? I've been there, I've experienced it. It's
seen it firsthand.
Seen it firsthand. I know.
Many cases.
I'm here today, sat here in this bloody freezing. I'm sat here because I feel so strongly about the fact that they can lie under oath, walk in court, walk out court, do whatever they want. You know, this should not be happening in this country. It really shouldn't be happening anywhere. It shouldn't be happening here, and I care about where we are, and I care about this issue, and as you do, and as many, many people do, and that's why we do what we do.
What do you think about the cost of corruption to the public, to this country?
Well, there's several issues relating to cost. Firstly, there's the tangible cost, i.e. the real cost, i.e. pounds, shillings and pence. But then there's the cost to undermining public confidence in the institution. You know, if you can't trust the police to tell the truth, who can you trust? Now, we get bashed a lot online, and I know you do, and I know we do. You hate the police, you're anti-police. Just utter crap. I'm sorry for swearing.
I think afterwards we have to go and hug a police officer.
Yeah, absolutely. And a hoodie afterwards, obviously. It's just utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. We don't hate the police. Are all the police corrupt? Are all the police bad? Of course not. That would be a ludicrous and just a stupid thing to say. Most officers that I've encountered are good, decent officers. They're doing their job. They're public servants. The issue is the lack of accountability for the officers that do wrong, and more importantly, the culture that's here. And it's this culture and this lack of accountability that is eroding public confidence in the police. There's all surveys now that public confidence in the police is an all-time low. Is police corruption something that's new? Well, we've just discussed that. The answer is no. It's been here for a long time. But the public now know about it, one, because of the internet, two, because of some very high-profile cases, and three, because the press are now reporting the correct narrative, whereas before they were in bed with the police, so they didn't report the stories of police corruption.
And technology as well. People have got film, audio, and we're catching the police out in the act and seeing what unfolds from that. So should we wrap it up with 2015? I mean, certainly my plans 2015 is I'm going to have a crack at getting into Parliament. Okay, so I'm going to be standing in the Uxbridge South constituency, where all my corruption started with Hillingdon Police, and just to make it even more interesting, they've flown Boris Johnson in, the Mayor of London, to stand against me. So it'll be me and Boris, the prospective future Prime Minister of this country. So Doherty versus Johnson, Now, Boris Johnson, he figures a bit in my story because the Mayor of London signed off in the region of £60,000 of public funding to pay for the criminal defence for the private prosecution I took out. And in a time when legal aid's been cut massively for the, can I use the word plebs? Or do I get outed? No. For the people in Britain, legal aid's been cut. Your right to public funding for your legal defence is disgusting. So that's what's happened. I was at a conference in Oxford University the other day. They were talking about it, all the lawyers, how bad the cuts are.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And at the same time, the Mayor of London signs off not a small amount of money, but at least £60,000 of funding. That's one of the issues Boris is going to have to answer when I'm standing in Uxbridge and asking him, when your constituent comes to you and brings to you an issue of corruption, be it council, local authority, police corruption. Hey, Mr. Goonie's here. That's a nice motto, Mr. Goonie. When you're talking about an issue of police corruption with your constituent, who are you going to go and see? Is Boris going to help you, or will Doherty help you?
I don't think there's any doubt there. It's a rhetorical question.
So that's whenever they call the election, I'll be standing. I'm going to have great fun doing it. I know a lot of people are going to be supportive of my campaign.
Of course.
And there's going to be lots of more court action and stuff coming along in 2015. No doubt they'll probably try and get me for something, as they've already done. You can look up Stitch Up in Stevenage, a remarkable case where they tried to prosecute me, or have prosecuted me for assaulting a court security officer who isn't actually a court security officer, which has just exposed a whole load more corruption. And over to you, what are you going to do in 2015?
Well, first thing I'll do is I'm bloody freezing. It's -2, so I'm going to have a coffee and sit in my car and warm up. But yeah, we'll just keep doing what we do to highlight the lack of police accountability, to work with the press, to work with stories. And the million-dollar question is, people say, where do I get all my stories from police corruption? Where do I get them from? I get them from the police, because there are good, honest police officers that are outraged, upset,
come
and
in,
disappointed
come and sit down.
at the lack of accountability.
Mr. Goonies, come and join us. Come and sit on my lap. come and sit down. Have a cuddle. Happy New Year, dude.
Untouchables.
This is
reiterate, it's the book that hello now.
This is the untouchable man.
Kissed by Egg, lucky me.
Egg.
Yeah. His story.
By all accounts,
How are you doing?
is a super dude, and
They haven't stopped.
they're
They
still
haven't
at it.
stopped. Let me tell you what they've done.
It couldn't happen to a nicer bloke.
Let me tell you what they've done so far. Last 08, they
Sit down, Egg.
Operation Oceanic, all right, was a sting set up for a alleged solicitation to murder Diane Holliday, who we believe is a registered informant who claimed to be my dad's partner, who now has taken possession of our estate, 460 acres of cemetery land, who she's just sold to the council, our homes, 30 years. They set up Operation Oceanic, which was an alleged contract killing, which was set up by a police informant, Sting, which a police officer,
This case stinks to the
Roger Sprickley's gone on record, police officer that was instructed by Surrey Police, and he was told to lie and he refused to lie. If you go onto YouTube, worst case police corruption, Ed Gunay, he's on record.
And it's a great documentary,
He's
really worth listening.
He's just released more evidence, internal emails saying we've dealt with the Gunay case, it's not a problem anymore, we've dealt with the problem.
No,
They
they haven't.
They smashed up a Colf to make out there was an accident, to make it look like she was assassinated. They had helicopters up in the air, they had a 9-month surveillance operation. They tried to put 3 undercover officers as contract killers, right, to get me out of the way. I spent a year on remand. I had a 5-week trial with the Old Bailey, was found not guilty and proved with my own evidence. And the first prosecution witness, Roger Sprickley, said, Mr. Gunay told me he was being set up, but I didn't understand him. I thought he was just crazy from his last miscarriage of justice. That was a prosecution witness. At that point, that trial should have collapsed.
Scotland Yard tried to ban this book, which
They put a blanket cover. They put a blanket cover on the day. We had 5 Porsches, all signed written up on a double-decker bus outside the Houses of Parliament, and I think it was Stevens at the time put an order of a blanket cover. So anyway, so they smashed up the car, a nice Golf. They put helicopters up in the air. They have a surveillance operation, a Sting. They spent millions on trying to fit me up. A year on remand at the taxpayer's expense. 5-week trial. I win. I'm not guilty, and the judge orders I pay the costs.
Yeah, it's mental.
£90,000. He said, you brought it upon yourself. Now, I moved out of Hackney to get away from all this, and they came. I'm living in the middle of a cemetery, and they come and set me up. The only people I should see is funeral directors grieving families, stonemasons, and florists.
Yeah.
And I've got undercover coppers knocking on the door saying, "Listen, mate, are you looking for a contract killer?" Yeah, in the middle of Brookwood Cemetery.
Watch the documentary. What is the documentary again?
The documentary is the worst case police corruption, Ed Goonay, or First Assembly, Ed Goonay.
We'll put the link on the film.
Yeah, I'll put a link up. I'll put a link at the end of the film.
And then I appeal, and they up it to £113,000. They're trying to force me to pay for the trial, 5-week trial, that shouldn't have taken place in the first instance.
We were just saying just before this that Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, gave £60,000 to the police defendant in the private prosecution that I gave.
Incredible.
Yeah, but they want you to pay for their corruption.
They want me to pay for a case that I won.
And that's
I was
part and parcel of.
Plus, I spent a year in prison. This has destroyed my kids.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. This has destroyed my kids. You know, I'm not talking to one of my kids at the moment because she can't cope.
No.
Okay? No. My middle child. Now, not forgetting, the first fit up, I spent 8 Christmases. So from 1995 to 2003, my oldest one was 4, my little one was 3 months old. I've come out, I'm a stranger to the little one, okay? I've come out, 2003, 2006, my father was murdered, okay? We still haven't buried him yet because of this woman. They murdered him in Cyprus, we bring him back, they claim, she makes a claim of domicile, we paid a 40% inheritance tax, so they established, or they identified that this man is a British subject, but refused to investigate his murder, and he was injected with 222 milligrams of ethanol, cleaning agent. And this man never drank. He was the chairman of the United Kingdom Islamic Trust, one of the first Turkish mosques in the UK. He was a clean and respectable, honourable man, and I was the target, because of all this shit, to try and take back the cemetery. Now the council has taken possession of this woman, and she's the manager on behalf of the council, but there's a known fraudster, the same woman that claims to have had Doherty 5's love child, long firm in history, setting up stings with a man called Isabel, taking him to Spain, telling him she's going to sell his diamonds, 40 grand worth of diamonds. We've got a dossier like this from a private investigator who's found. I was arrested at a baby funeral because of this one. I was for breach of the peace at a baby funeral. Breach of the peace. We was held, 5 of us. I mean, the corruption is beyond belief. In your case, millions of pounds surveillance operation for what? No. Who's pulling the strings? Your case, a man that's defending his family.
Michael deserved it though.
Let me tell you something. These people here, in this gaff here, well...
Don't say it.
I don't need to say it. This is the devil's work.
If you want to know how bad it gets with police corruption, you just got to look at the Ed Goonay case, because it just doesn't stop, does it? It just doesn't stop.
By the Home Office, they tried to ban publication of the book.
Yeah.
By Journalist of the Year, Michael Gillard.
Gillard and Laurie Flynn. If it weren't for Michael Gillard,
you wouldn't be here probably.
I wouldn't have understood why. The worst thing is, CIB 1, 2 and 3 were all aware. Chris Jarrett was head of. This is
CIB was the Internal Investigations
Bureau, yeah. They folded that over because the third one, Chris Jarrett goes to me. I'm in Swellside Prison halfway through an 18-year sentence. Chris Jarrett goes, "Mr. Goonay, don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of this." I said, "Who are you?" "I'm head of Ghost Squad, CIB 3. I said, "Really?" He said, "Now, obviously, I don't believe fucking word, excuse me."
That's right.
It's part of the illness from the sentence. And 2 weeks later, sitting in my cell as you do, reading the Sunday Times, Billy Hickson walks in. He said, "Have you seen the back page of the Sunday Times?" I said, "1 minute, chap." Bloody hell, Chris Jarrett's been arrested for police corruption. Yeah. The very same person. Yeah. They set up internal affairs. I've got secret recordings which you need to see. Adrian Tapp and a couple of others from internal affairs.
Isn't Adrian Tapp in the IPCC now?
Well, funny enough, my first question to him was...
Isn't he? I've heard the name before.
I said to him, did you ever work at Stoke Newton Police Station? He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that's that then, isn't it?" I said, "Where do you lot all sit when you're having lunch at the yard, you sit on the same table. He said, yeah, well, we do. So I said, so the only difference is the label. You're all the same department, different label. Well, yeah, it is a bit like that, Mr. Gounod. I said, so what is the point? I said, I'll be released soon. Even the Criminal Case Review Commission said this was the worst case of abuse of process. My evidence was used as an intelligent gathering exercise to catch their corrupt officers, which they've done nothing about. That's...
Sure, okay, lovely. We'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a hug?
Can we have a hug? Happy New Year hug.
I don't mind catching your flu as long as...
Thank you very much, thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, so here we are.
Yeah, the same with us.
We're together.
Badge. Okay. Okay.
Okay. What badge you got then?
That will be me, I cannot lie, it was me, but he made me do it.
Really? Well, don't make me do what I've got to do.
I will move it in a few moments, if I may.
You've been told.
Thank you so much.
You've been told.
You're a beauty. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Let's wrap it up.
No, be careful we don't get
Hello, mate.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
There's no cameras around Scotland Yard.
Let me tell you something. In this building, there's a surveillance operation watching their bloody own.
Yeah.
Just so they
Like
can blackmail
sharks.
them.
Swimming with sharks.
Yeah, there's a camera there. So yeah, I mean, the extent of it is it's deep. I mean, these people have been getting away with murder. The man that planted in the first case the guns and drugs in my daughter's bedroom turned out to be the same man that got nicked for conspiring to murder a known criminal, Colombo and Morgan. He was filmed. They went to a known criminal to say to him, listen, we want you to murder this bloke. If it goes wrong, give us a call. It happens all the time. So the criminal shit himself. He's filmed it, gone to Channel 4, they filmed it, and they've got the cop on tape saying, we want to just murder him. If it goes wrong, we'll clean it up. This is the gangsters.
There's the same thing in the Daniel Morgan case where
How you doing, young man? Happy New Year.
The police officer set up the wife of a client, with drugs in her car. Went to jail for 4 years for it. His name is.
But this is what they're doing. They are bringing in heroin themselves. This is what I know. They are bringing in.
There's a whole book called Scotland Yard Cocaine Connection. I forgot to bring it.
Well, you know, I'm going to be. There's areas that they're not looking into that they need to look into. The commanding officer in my case was Roy Ram, right? Roy Ram,
head of the flying squad.
Yeah, very naughty boy, very clever man. He had to resign, I was told, from my case. He was the youngest serving commanding officer, and he was appointed. This will interest you. One of 3 members that sit on the committee that authorises the licences for casinos. Very nice. Very nice. Funny handshake and all that. How does that work?
Well, we mentioned it earlier. My final wrap. Assistant Commissioner John Yates told the Home Secretary Alan Johnson that they had no evidence of hacking, even though they had 300 million emails that they hadn't even started to look at. But more importantly, he told the Home Secretary that hacking was a storm in a teacup. If an Assistant Commissioner can say that to the Home Secretary, the average man on the street has got no chance.
Well, it's his old mate, isn't it?
Anything for 2015, Egg? What's
We're coming. And we're coming strong.
Well, we're here already.
Yeah.
We're here. It's the morning, New Year's Day, and we're here in the face of Scotland Yard, and we want the yard cleaned up.
Read the book, okay? Read the book. Our community is getting strong. We've now in a very position to go and see Boris Johnson directly because he's got blood on his hands, mate.
Well, I'll be standing in the elections against Boris Johnson this year.
Well, let me tell you something. We've got a very big congregation down our mosque, which I've taken over in Shackwell Lane.
Okay.
It's the first Turkish mosque that was set up in the United Kingdom by my father in 1977. We've got thousands of followers. we've now joined over another 10 mosques, which will be protesting what's gone on in Woking with the councils, and we're all behind you,
Thank
Michael,
you.
and Ian. As a team, we'll
Three amigos,
behind
the
you.
three musketeers. Can I be D'Artagnan?
You can.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to have breakfast.
Should we go and get warm somewhere?
Yeah.
I am so cold. I
Stand
am
up,
so cold.
big hug. Group hug. Right. Happy New Year to Happy New Year to all the people. I'm going to try and get this up on YouTube tonight.
Yeah.
Over and out.
Can we get a couple of pictures? while
Yeah,
we're
let's
here?
get some pictures.
Let's get a picture.